Hello and welcome to Bored and Confused, where I review shows based on two criteria. One, was I bored? Two, was I confused? Today's show is Shifters, playing at the historic Cherry Lane Off-Broadway Theater down in the West Village. Before I get into this play from the other side of the pond, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep growing my viewership and score more press tickets to see shows like Shifters and other shows off-Broadway, and then come here and tell you all about them. So what did I know going into seeing Shifters? I knew this was a two-person play. I knew it came from London, and I knew it must have done well because they were bringing it over here, and that's about it. Also, I was just really excited to go back to the Cherry Lane Theater and see a play there because it's the oldest off-Broadway theater, so I love the history and I also love the location of the theater. It's just in this really cute spot in the West Village. Okay, let's talk really quickly about a little bit about the show's development. Now, Shifters is written by playwright Benedict Lombe. She has a relationship with London's Bush Theatre, and this play was developed through the Bush's artistic development pipeline. She came up through their emerging writers group, and the play itself was produced under the Bush's Staged by Jerwood scheme. It premiered there starring Heather Agyepong and Tosin Cole. It was directed by Lynette Linton, and it became enough of a hit that it was transferred to the West End at the Duke of York's Theatre. And that transfer was a big deal for another reason too, because Lombe became only the third Black British female playwright to have a play staged in the West End's history. So this is an important piece for that reason. And from there, it crossed the Atlantic to make the North American premiere here at Cherry Lane. Still directed by Lynette Linton and still starring Heather Agyepong, reprising her role opposite Daniel Ezra, who is stepping in for Tosin Cole. And apparently, this thing has legs beyond the stage too, because Britain's Channel 4 is developing it into a TV series. Pretty cool, right? So what is the show about? No spoilers here. So this play is about a relationship between two people, a man and a woman, who meet at a young age and have an on and off romantic relationship. It's called Shifters because we shift between time and space, seeing moments of their relationship at different places in its trajectory. Sometimes we'll see the beginning of a scene, then we'll go someplace else and come back to that scene later. There's a returning scene where they meet as teenagers, a scene where they reconnect in their 20s, and now we see them in their 30s. I think there are maybe 3 or 4 main recurring scenes that we keep returning to, and then there's other shorter ones as well. The lighting also helps us track these scenes a little bit. The modern day scene when they're in their 30s is all white light, and then the younger scenes are blue and red, but this really does shift all over the place. So if you asked me right now to tell you this story from start to finish chronologically, I couldn't do it. I took in these moments that they were happening within the relationship, but not in order. So despite the bouncing around, you are able to understand the depth of the relationship, what's hindering them from being together, and what they really want and what they long for. We really learn who these people are over the course of the play, and things are revealed not only to the audience, but to the characters on stage as well. The official synopsis puts it this way: Shifters is an epic and universal love story about the enduring power of memory and young love. Dre and Des are young, gifted, and Black. He stayed, she left. Years later, they come crashing back into each other's lives, carrying new secrets and old scars, caught between memory and reality, navigating the shifting borders that threaten to rewrite their past and reshape their future. Well written. This play runs 1 hour, 45 minutes, no intermission. I also believe there's no lead seating, so if you get up and leave, you cannot come back in. The stage is set up very interestingly. There's the main audience, and then there's about 3 or 4 rows on the other side of the stage. So you can see the reactions of the people sitting opposite you, which I really enjoyed. And most of the staging felt like either side could really see, though there are a couple times I noticed one of the actors wasn't quite facing my side, but since it's only two actors, they tend to be staged on either side facing each other on this small playing space. So both audiences can see them in profile. So let's get into some positives and some negatives. Now, before I get into this, I want to make it clear that I went on a journey with this play, and ultimately I fell in love with it. But it was rough going at the start. But I think this is a very important play that a lot of people will be talking about. So if you love theater, I recommend you check it out so that you can get in on the conversation and comment below. Okay, let's get into it. As the play began, the first thing I was struck by is that it really felt like a play from London. It felt Very choreographed and rehearsed. Say a line, then on a certain word, I stand up, I move, I pick up an object, I set it down. There's a joke here. It's delivered very well rehearsed, and the reaction is projected to the audience. And it just all felt very choreographed in the way that British productions often are. Or I should say London productions often are. And I also think the director was concerned that American ears might not be able to follow the West African inflected British dialects these characters have. And they might be right, but I felt like Daniel Ezra specifically, who plays Dre, was really over-enunciating in his first monologue in a way that felt like he was talking to us as an audience, like a large audience. And that's fine, but when someone is monologuing, I'd prefer it feel more like they're talking to an old friend and not projecting for the crowd and over-enunciating. And this really, though, was only about the first 15 or 20 minutes, and then he stopped doing it. So I think it was something he had been directed to do in the opening just to kind of ease the audience in. Personally, I don't mind missing a few words as long as someone's speaking in a way that feels like they're trying to communicate with another person. I think if they do that, I'll get the gist, even if I don't hear all the words. Also, these monologues are in second person. They don't say, I did this. They say, you do this. You go to meet someone. You see how handsome they are. You ask them for the time. You feel some sort of way about this. And I don't know, I'm on the fence about that choice because at times it felt very distancing and I was just like, why are you talking in second person? And I felt like it was removing me from the action instead of pulling me into it. And more than the dialogue, the monologues especially felt like they were being written by the same person. So at the beginning, I couldn't really distinguish between Destiny's voice and Dre's voice. They both sounded highly educated, poetically and writerly, which is interesting because neither of these people is a writer. One is a cook, restaurant entrepreneur, and the other is a visual artist. And I could maybe buy her speaking more poetically, but both came across as very verbal and poetic in a way that didn't quite track with their characters and how they spoke when they were speaking to each other. I felt like I was hearing the voice of the playwright. Now, when they spoke to each other directly rather than in monologue, it felt much more natural and relaxed. So there was a formality to the proceedings early on that distanced me from the characters, and combined with the overly choreographed movement and line delivery, it kept reminding me, you're watching a play. Now, the audience laughed at all the appropriate places, but I personally have a hard time laughing at something when it feels performative and choreographed instead of organic, that it's just happening for the first time. And I think that's the challenge with a director who's really choreographing every beat. It's hard for the actors to really make that feel truthful and make it feel like it's never happened before. Now, and I don't want to pin this on the actors, and I don't want to pin it on the director. I just want to say it wasn't really working for me for the first half of the play. But it was really interesting to look across the stage and see how the play was affecting the audience on the other side. Some people looked completely engaged. There's this one woman who was just so in it to win it. But then there were other people who felt a little bit more like me, who are a little bit like, I don't know about this yet. So, on the positive sides, my favorite stretch of the play was towards the end, once we get scenes where the two actors are just facing each other. Now, this isn't a naturalistic set. It's a plain empty space with boxes that get moved around and they can pull props out. So it makes sense for them to just face each other and talk. And there's not a lot of busy works going on in those really dramatic scenes at the end. You know, no one's walking to a refrigerator and taking out a beer. Although there is a scene where they're drinking from looks like a bottle of whiskey, and they were drinking quite a lot in a very short time. But when it's just the two actors emotionally reacting to each other, that's when the play really started to work for me. I just wish it hadn't felt so choreographed early on, because these actors clearly have the skill to make this material come alive. They're funny and they're heartbreaking and they're really great. I just felt like the direction was maybe hemming them in a bit. And just this style of theater is a little pet peeve of mine. So other reviews I've seen online have landed on some of the same things I noticed, that this really lives and dies on the chemistry between Agyepong and Ezra, and that chemistry is what carries you through the play. Some critics also pointed out that Shifters is arriving in the middle of a run of right person, wrong circumstances romance stories, Maybe Happy Ending, Two Strangers Carry a Cake Across New York, the gruesome playground injuries revival, even the movie Past Lives. So it's got some company in that lane right now, for better or for worse. So was I bored? Was I confused? Bored. Yeah, I was. I was bored during the first hour of this hour and 45-minute play. Most of those early scenes were kind of meet cute moments, and we hadn't really hit any dramatic moments yet. But about an hour in, we get a scene where they kiss for the first time, and then we jump to a scene later that I think happens after another time they kissed. I'm not totally sure, because later we see another kissing scene, and I thought, oh wait, maybe that was the kissing scene they were referencing earlier. But there's a scene where he says, "You kissed me and this disappeared for 2 months." And they're in a dance club, and she wants to talk, and he's angry. And I was thinking, why are you so upset, man? She barely kissed you once. But later in the play, I realized he might have meant a different kissing scene that we see after that. So you can see how the way this play is structured can get a little confusing. But this is the scene in the club where I really started connecting with the play. This is our first real lovers spat. And from here to the end, the remaining 45 minutes, I was completely engaged by this play. It clicked in, and I understood what this relationship was. Two people who deep down know that they're soulmates, but they're unable to be together because of choices they make and outside factors. And it kind of is a tragedy of sorts for the romantics. And I feel like this is for romantics, but it has a healthy dose of realism, which I really enjoyed. So this is the moment when I started laughing and I stopped feeling like I was watching choreography. I stopped hearing the same voice of the writer coming out of both characters, and I started to understand who they were as individuals. From there, the play really worked for me. I was loving the second half. I was really in it and just having great, it was great theater. So basically, I was bored and confused by this play, and yet I still loved it. So if you're willing to put in the work, and that first hour genuinely felt like work to me, mentally trying to connect all the dots, I was getting a little exhausted. You know, when my brain gets too much information it can't process, I actually get sleepy. I have this trick, a side note, of when I can't fall asleep at night, where I try to solve a tough problem in my head, whether it's math or maybe I'm working on a script and I'm trying to figure something out and going through it in my head puts me right out. And that's what was happening to me during this play. My brain was starting to get overwhelmed, and it was starting to shut down, and I was starting to get sleepy. But then that scene came along and it woke me up. So was I confused? Yes, because we're bouncing around so much in time and space that I was having a hard time to grasp on who these people were, and I wasn't really connecting the dots the way I really wanted to, at least for that first hour. One question this raised for me, and one I ask a lot with theater, is you've got stories that are interesting, and you've got theatrical devices that are interesting. And it's great when a strong story and a strong theatrical device, direction, staging, playwriting, whatever, come together to really make the story fly. And with this one, I was on the fence about whether this is genuinely a great story or whether the play is really about the conceit of shifting through time and space to tell it. I mean, that's the title of the play. Now, I don't have a firm conclusion, but I kept asking myself, if this story were told chronologically, would it be an exciting story? Is this a love story for the ages? And I don't have a clear answer, but my hunch is the first half wouldn't be terribly interesting if it was told chronologically, because not a lot of drama happens in those first meet cute scenes. I think the shifting around in time is designed to engage the audience, to engage our brains, to make us really piece the relationship together, and to engage us in a way that isn't really dramatic. That said, there's an argument that this is an artistic choice that ultimately pays off, because by the end, I was completely on board and won over by these actors and by the way the play was being presented. I loved the performances. I just wish they hadn't been so choreographed early on. You know, maybe I will put that on director Lynette Linton, now that I've thought about it, because I really like these actors. So, if you're willing to put in the work for that first hour to make sense of these scenes bouncing all over the place, I think you'll be rewarded with a very enjoyable, very moving theatrical experience by the time you get to the end of an hour and 45 minutes. So I think it was worth it. I just wish it hadn't been so much work, but ultimately it was worth it in the end. I applaud the artistic approach of telling the story this way. It's interesting, and I don't know if it's something I'd try myself. I don't think I have the guts for it, but more power to the writers who do take this kind of risk. So, reasons to see this play. Go check out this play if any of this sounds interesting to you. I want people to see this play. I'm curious to see what people think. This was a huge hit in London, so I'd say this is a show people are going to be talking about, and you're going to want to get in on the conversation. So leave your comments below. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Go get your ticket. Check out Shifters. And how can you get those tickets? Well, luckily, I think this may be the first time that I got a press ticket for something at Cherry Lane, so thank you for that. I was seated in row E, seat 1 and 3, and I was on the aisle. It was a fantastic seat. Could look right down the aisle, which goes down the center of the theater. But honestly, this is a very small theater, and I think anywhere you sit will really work out great. Where can you get your cheap tickets? Well, there's a few ways to save on this one. There's a limited number of $24 rush tickets are available in person at the Cherry Lane Theater box office, beginning exactly 1 hour before curtain time. I don't know how early people line up. If you waited online, please let me know. Let people know in the comments below. Also, New York City Council member Chi Osei has been running a special promotion offering 25% off tickets for the entire run by signing up for his local newsletter. Love that. Love a politician who loves theater. Also, keep an eye on Today Tix and TDF for discounts. Depending how well this show is doing, you might see discounts there, you might not. I hope this does really well. I ultimately really enjoyed this play. I really got on board with it. So go check out Shifters. You've been warned, so hopefully you won't be bored or confused since you know what to expect. And I hope you enjoy it. All right, bye.
Don't wanna drift away. Wanna stay inside the play.
Keep me engaged, keep me amused
With what's in front of me.
'Cause I don't wanna be
Bored and confused.